Sharpening tools is an important skill to learn. It takes time and you only need a few pieces of equipment. First is a sharpening stone. This one has two grits, a 1000 grit and a 400 grit. This means you can do a lot of sharpening with just the one stone. This is a sharpening honing guide and a jig for getting your chisels and planes to the right angle. More on that later. Also here is a piece of leather and some stropping compound. You can use the leather without the compound, but the compound helps to get a polished edge. It's useful also to have a rag nearby for cleaning. The first thing you want to do is get rid of any surface rust or grime or whatever. If you buy a chisel second hand, there's often a little bit of rust on there. That's not something to worry about. It often just requires a little bit of sanding with 120 grit or 240 grit. You just need to get off the surface rust and get to the bare metal. It doesn't need to be pristine. To do all of this for a chisel this size should take you no more than 5 minutes. I'm now holding the chisel with the bevel down and removing the surface rust from the cutting edge. Should be careful of your hand when you're doing this. However, having said that, this chisel is really blunt, so isn't going to cut me should I slip. I want to make sure you sand all the rust off all of the faces of the chisel. By the way, the techniques I'm showing here are the same as you would use for a plain blade as well. So as said before, this stone has a 400 grit and a 1000 grit. The lower the number, the coarser the stone. So I'm going to start with a 400 grit. I've also made a jig that puts the honing guide to the right angle. You can see this guide runs up and down the stone with the wheel, and I'm going to put the end of the chisel touching this block of wood which I've measured out based on what is written on the side of the honing guide. I'm now going to tighten the guide up a little bit so it grips the chisel, and then make sure it's nice and tight in the guide with the screwdriver. You want to make sure that the chisel is straight. If it's at an angle, you'll sharpen it with you'll sharpen it inconsistently. Stones either take water or oil. This is a diamond stone, so it takes water as the lubricant. If it's an oil stone, you want to use an oil on there, a light oil. And then I'm moving the honing guide backwards and forwards, and because of that angle, it's going to grind an angle that I want on the cutting edge of the chisel. You'll be able to see which bits you've got and which you haven't, because the metal will be shinier. And you want to do this all the way until you've got a nice straight edge all the way along that blade. I now want to flatten the back of the blade. And you can see how I'm holding the chisel for this point, and I'm putting pressure down on the blade, but I'm not pushing down too hard. You want the stone to do the work. Now you can see that I've got two different bits for the chisel, and this is because we're going to put a primary and a secondary bevel on there. So the first angle is 25 degrees, and now I'm putting a 30-degree angle on. Again, make sure it's nice and tight in the guide, and make sure the chisel is straight and not crooked. Once you've done this with a honing guide a few times, you'll get used to the angle, and then it's worth learning to do this sharpening without using the guide. Just makes things a lot faster. And again, I'm going to do this until I am happy with the edge. This doesn't want to go, the secondary bevel doesn't want to go all the way to the end of the blade. So now I've switched the stone around to the 1000 grit side, and again add some water. You saw I removed the water from the previous side. That just stops the steel underneath the cutting diamonds getting rusty. First thing I do is bring it backwards a few strokes on the flat end of the chisel, or flat side. And then back to the same angle that I was doing before. This time I'm only doing the secondary bevel. I'm not going to go for the primary and secondary bevel on the finer grit, because I'm just polishing. And I do the same process. Now I'm stropping. This is just a piece of leather on a piece of wood with the stropping compound on top, and I'm going to pull it back, putting a lot of pressure down. I usually count around about 40 times, and then I'm going to do the flat face of the chisel, and then I might go back to the bevel again and do another 30 times, and then the flat. And this is polishing the edge of the metal up and getting a really nice fine finish. I'm going to test this on a piece of oak, and hopefully we'll get a nice fine shaving. Oak is a very hard wood, so if your chisel's nice and sharp, you should get a nice cut, which I am getting here.